Now we're going to dismantle this entire camp. We start dismantling it. The government has until 1200 tomorrow to come out here, and we are not going to leave until this cell is dug out of the ground that I'll show you in a minute. This is a prison cell. Only kids are being held down here.
And they brought me into the camp and showed me the underground bunker. It was basically a giant plastic container with a hole only small enough for a child to crawl in and out of. And it was angled in such a way, and it was buried underground, that a small child that was in there could not have gotten out on their own.
They're having them slide up.
There's a child's vanity and a hospital toilet. That looks like a child's car seat. Strollers and children's toys and clothing and food packets and stuff like that. So clearly children had been kept here. All right, so with these straps. But one thing that was really disturbing was there were arm restraints, wrist restraints on 2 trees.
Well, this is the camp that the veterans found. We're about a mile from I-19 in Valencia. And the one thing that's interesting about this, you come over to this area and it's got these covers on top. You know, it looks like cushionings and everything. It doesn't look too obvious. People would probably pass it by. I'm about 6'3". The one thing about it, you have to like duck to get down here and in this area. And it's when these vets came and found that area right there, that's when they thought something was suspicious.
The solar lights is what gave it away. We wouldn't have been walking on the right trail. We wouldn't have seen it. We would have went right past it. It's right over here. We're going to cut down.
Lewis Arthur is from the Veterans on Patrol group. They search washes and bridges looking for homeless vets they can help get off the streets. As part of their search on Tuesday night, they stumbled upon this abandoned camp.
And we're right there, and our city's right there, and our children are right there. And it's not my problem if it's in our backyard. Well, now it's in our backyard.
This afternoon, we toured the area with Craig Sawyer and Jerry Payton, a former Navy SEAL and former Tucson firefighter, to get their thoughts on what this camp may be.
I didn't expect to see something this heinous and inhumane this close. Well, I served in the military to keep things like this from happening here. That's why I risked my security to go and so that you guys, so nobody back here would have to put up with this. This position here leads me to believe this would be a guard.
To these experts in the field of trafficking, this didn't look like your typical homeless camp. We found restraints on trees.
I mean, what is this?
Hair dye, kids' items.
This is a crib.
Pornographic material, and even an outdoor bathroom.
Toilet where it looks like they had a bucket. I've heard of all the way, you know, rooms full of kids and houses and basements and things like that, but nothing underground like this, like an underground cell. That's pretty creepy.
Sawyer says it looked like the last time someone was at this camp about 10 days ago. He believes they could come back.
In fact, there's another one nearby that they found that they're already digging with fresh tools and fresh dirt.
We were told TPD investigators came out here recently to take photos and write a report. We reached out to the department and have yet to hear back from them. From the southwest side, Kevin Adger, KLD News 13, live local late breaking.
Maddie, it looks like it's...
Missing children is an epidemic. In the United States alone, roughly 800,000 kids go missing each year. Many never heard from again. And nobody asks why this is happening or where they are going. The news media only reports a tiny fraction of them. Beneath haunting headlines and troubling statistics lies a dark underworld of organized kidnapping, child trafficking, and satanic cults.
People think or relate the number of children that go missing every year to the number of times we see a story on the news that a child is missing and everyone's trying to find them. That is the tiniest tip of the iceberg.
What is happening to these children? Join me as we search for the truth behind the disturbing numbers of missing children.
Hundreds of thousands of children go missing in America every year. I've rung the states, because they don't have federal figures, tell you how many cars went missing federally, but not children. They said, you've got to ring the states. I rung a load of states years ago now. I said, how many children go missing every year? How many children went missing last year? And I added the figures up. What? Never seen this on the news, hundreds of thousands. Some of them are found, some of them have explanations. Not all, nothing like.
And you know, there's 100,000 children go missing a year under 16. 100,000. wandering around.
200,000 you would think would make the
Astonishing.
news all the time.
You would think so, and I guess that's the problem. Just too many.
So when you see missing children on milk cartons, and you see that you go in Walmart and see that wall missing since such and such, they're not missing. They've been kidnapped. They have a crew that goes in certain parts of town, and they ask for the ages. We want them between 6 and 10. And they'll say we want them all white. And that's what they'll get. We want 3. And we want them in those age brackets.
Chauncey Glover, who just spoke with that young victim. Chauncey?
The incident happened right here along Star Peak Drive. The little boy lives right down the road. He's 11 years old and is a 6th grader here at Hill Intermediate School. He was walking here to this school Friday morning around 8 o'clock when that white work van pulled up next to him. Now, I want to show you these pictures of the van. This is the van police are searching for right now. Now, the boy says 3 Hispanic men were inside of the van and tried to lure him in. He says they had some type of dog catching net, that they were trying to put over him.
How do they find the girls that they think they want? Now, back in the day, it was hard. They had to go to the school grounds and go to these gymnasium of baseball and football games and watch the cheerleaders. That's how they did it back in the day. They sent out scouts. It's like a scout, but the guy was a perv to decide who he was going to kidnap. And they would take pictures and without their knowledge. Well, they don't have to do that no more. That was the 70s and 80s. They just go on the internet. They go through Instagram. They go, well, the best one is thus far is Instagram and Facebook. They locate her IP address, Google map it. They know where she's at. And what they'll do is send someone out there, her location, and just watch to see when she come out. And they'll get her routine down packed. They'll see she goes here, she goes there. We'll get her getting off the bus. Or do it Friday. Or they'll just pick a day. But they do their scouting on the internet.
But our private detectives have been digging up a lot of information showing an overall network in the country, and that Johnny was a possible victim of that network as opposed to just a random pedophile running around Des Moines. So when I presented what we had in our case, the person that followed me in presenting was a member of the FBI. And what they had laid on the table about this size was nothing but one publication after another that had all been taken from a pedophile in a raid that the FBI conducted. And then the other interesting thing that was there on the table was a book of pictures of kids who had not yet been kidnapped.
The statement was that you could order a kid out of that book.
And the interesting thing is that from time to time when we do hear of reports of children being photographed either on a playground and or walking to and from school or just whatever, in many cases there is an abduction attempt on the same child up to 3 weeks, a month, or 2 months later.
One of the most famous kidnapping cases in America is that of Iowa paperboy Johnny Gosch, the first missing child to appear on a milk carton. At 12 years old, he was the victim of what they would later realize to be a professional kidnapping ring.
He was also involved in kidnapping.
Oh, yeah.
What knowledge do you have of that?
They'd have what they call catalog kids.
Mm-hmm.
They would basically just go out driving around looking for kids.
Uh-huh.
And they would take pictures of them and go to these wealthy, influential people and say, you know, would you be interested in this one or that one or the next one?
Mm-hmm.
And they would basically go snatch them.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened to Johnny Gosch.
Despite obvious evidence to the contrary, police insisted on listing Johnny as another runaway.
The cop looked at me. He said, well, has your son ever run away before? And I said, didn't you just hear me? I said, my son did not run away. Someone has taken him. I just gave you the information from all of the witnesses. The cop said, well, I'll check on this. Even after all the witnesses, after all of this information that had been given, the police chief put Johnny into the NCIC computer as a runaway.
Some of these missing children are sold into the international slave trade. For centuries, The so-called elite and ultra-powerful have preyed on the most vulnerable and precious of society. Now, more than ever, there is a global demand for children. There are auctions where such victims are sold as sex slaves to international bankers, politicians, and the very wealthy.
Give any indication of how much it costs to buy one? Because what I'm saying is that this is not going to be done cheaply, and it's not going to be done for free.
We've heard estimates of about $50,000 to $75,000 per child, depending on the features and the looks of that child, the innocence, prepubescent children. There are also, and this has been documented by a number of private investigators who've researched it, that periodically auctions take place in the United States. Different places, they move around. They don't just set up shop in one spot and publish a notice that there's going to be an auction. It's done very secretively, and they might run 10 to 20 kids at a time through an auction block. And the buyers can be from foreign countries or whatever. And then the child would never have a hope of ever getting back to his own country.
Former head of the LA FBI, Ted Gunderson, spoke about one such auction location outside of Las Vegas, where Illuminati bankers and Middle Eastern royalty come to buy American children.
What do they do with these kids that they kidnap? Paul Benassi has attended 6 auctions where they auctioned children. Any age from 3 and 4 all the way up to 21. They put a tag around their neck. They're in their underwear. They have a number on the tag. And people down below bid on them. The kids sell for between $15,000 to $50,000. I've even heard of one kid going for $100,000. One of the locations outside of Las Vegas, about 50 miles outside of Las Vegas, and I located it. It's an airstrip. I went up with a friend of mine and we found it. And there were airplanes there. There were campers there. And there were men who, with foreign accents. There was a police officer there, at least somebody in a uniform. These kids are auctioned off and put on the airplane, and nobody knows what's happened to them.
These trafficking rings use various control methods to keep victims enslaved. But child trafficking rings are only the tip of the iceberg. There are even darker forces at work behind child disappearances. No doubt some children end up the victims of satanic cults. Since ancient times, children have been the preferred sacrifice of strange gods and demonic deities. The Bible warned Ammonites against making their children pass through the fires to Molech. These same arcane practices are still practiced today. According to Satanist Aleister Crowley, a male child of perfect innocence and high intellect is the most satisfactory and suitable victim for sacrifice.
12-year-old girls are big, more or less. They've been known to get down to 10, but they usually start at 12 or 13 and go to 25. And for the people who like to hitchhike, this is how they pick them all up. And of course the police will just tell the parents the kids run away from school. They use them for sexual and for sacrifice, human sacrifice. The LA County Sheriff's Department has a very secret undercover thing. I don't even know if you can find out if it exists, but I've talked to them. It's called the Occult Squad. They told me in '73 that they found 35 bodies of girls in Los Angeles County that year that they knew to be human sacrifice, which they listed as rape cases to people in the public. The statistics that came in so far this year are close to 125. And the year's not even over. Now that's girls that have been used for human sacrifice. And if you all notice, there's quite a few rape cases that happened around Halloween that are in the news right now. And from what we can find out, the circumstances of each death fit human sacrifice. But you'll never hear it, that's the reason.
The body of the missing 5-year-old girl was recovered yesterday.
So the kid was killed?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh. The child was first reported missing from her home by her mother last Tuesday morning. On Friday, Maria Andrette McNeil was charged with first-degree kidnapping, and late Saturday, her mother, Antoinette Nicole Davis, was arrested on accusations that she prostituted her daughter.
I think a lot of these kids who are brought up by these Satanists who sacrifice these children in religious rituals.
In June 2017, Dutch banker Ronald Bernard garnered worldwide attention when he did an interview blowing the whistle on the dark and secretive world in which he was involved. In it, a clearly troubled Bernard explained how at the top levels, the world financiers are satanic and engaged in bizarre rituals, including sacrifice of children.
It was the good life. But then at some point, I was invited, which is why I'm telling you all this, to participate in sacrifices abroad. That was the breaking point.